Welcome once again to the college football edition of the Pylon to Pylon podcast, where we love football and hate your opinion. I'm your host, Richard Bradshaw, joined always by co-host Skylar Burkhart.
How we doing, guys?
And Donnie Druin could not make it this week due to some family issues, so our thoughts and prayers go out to you, my friend. Filling in for him is friend of the podcast, Connor Dreos.
Why is my chair not labeled? I would have thought for sure at this point I gotta have my own chair.
You would think so.
You would think, but we rotate so often, we just leave it as is.
We gotta look into that.
And you can move my chair.
Should we get like a little magnetic tape, and just like put it on there and just rip it off whenever someone else comes in?
We gotta do that for the mic, too, so that way he feels special. That, or we can just get him like a little toy mic like what you use for karaoke nights.
Just talk to management, see what Hannah says, and we'll see what...
Yeah, producer Hannah, we gotta get with her first. So, ladies and gentlemen, as I said, this is the college football edition of this podcast. Every Wednesday, we will have 2 episodes come out for the Pylon to Pylon podcast. Subscribe to us on iTunes, Spreaker. We have all sorts of social media accounts, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. Make sure you're following all those. Get the latest updates for us. College football and NFL, we're all about it. We are also sponsored proudly by SeatGiant.com. SeatGiant.com has to be your go-to from now on whenever you're looking to buy tickets to just about any event near you. That goes for concerts and sporting events, and just about everything else that you can think of. They're covering all of North America, which includes Canada, so everyone listening in Canada, they take Canadian dollars, so I know you're going to love that. But in the meantime, even though they have great prices, make sure you're typing in the promo code PYLON, that's PYLON, for an additional discount to already great price tickets. That's SeatGiant.com, ladies and gentlemen. Make sure you're going there next time you want to go to a game.
You didn't say A when you were talking about...
Hey! Well, tell you what, boys, since we live in the great country of Arizona...
He got that right for sure.
Okay, perfect.
Yep.
Continent, if you're a geographer.
Yes.
We all know that Arizona State is the heart and soul of the Valley, and we kind of keep... Mexico Community College, otherwise known as University of Arizona, down south, and just don't claim them at all. But here in the Valley, Arizona State,
Mexico.
No, it pretty much is. Here in the Valley, Arizona State football is so much fun to get into. The student fan base is outstanding. We're able to get all sorts of stuff going on. Since we put a good program out on the field, fans are filling up the stands, getting the energy back in the stadium. It's a great experience.
Is it a good program?
It's hit and miss, and that's what we're going to get to here in a second. Is first-year head coach in college, Herm Edwards, has brought a different kind of mentality to the college football level, because this is a guy, he's a rah-rah guy. He's going to get in your face, and he's going to bring that energy, and that's not something that we typically see in college. You look at very successful coaches like Urban Meyer and Nick Saban and Dabo Swinney, okay, with the exception of Dabo, but like Saban and Urban, they're not screaming, yelling in your face. I mean, sure, they'll have a good time, especially Urban, as we all know. So, the best example would be Nick Saban, out of all the guys I named. He's not a rah-rah guy.
He doesn't have emotion.
He doesn't. He's the Bill Belichick of college football.
He does get angry. Mostly in media.
You're up 348 to nothing at halftime, and there's plenty more that Alabama could have done better in that first half.
Always.
They allowed yards in that half.
Yeah, they did. They allowed like -2 yards. That's unacceptable.
But that's still not in 0.
Yep, exactly. He'd rather have it at 0. Point being, though, Herm Edwards just brings this different mentality to Arizona State in general. And that was very apparent during the first couple weeks of the season. It looked like a very disciplined football team in terms of tackling and executing. Now, penalties were a concern, but that was kind of to be expected with so many young guys getting ready to step up into these roles.
They also had the number 1 ranked rushing defense through 2 weeks.
I'm going to beat your ass. But Michigan State, ranked 15 at the time, comes to town, and Arizona State is able to lock down Michigan State's rushing attack, which includes future NFL stud L.J. Scott. And they actually pulled off the upset 16-13. And at that point, I remember on this podcast, too, we started drinking the Herm Edwards Kool-Aid. Everyone was aboard the Herm train. Now they've lost back-to-back weeks. That number 1 rushing defense went straight down the pooper when San Diego State hosted Arizona State.
San Diego State.
And just ran it down their throats. And now this past week, yeah, they went into the University of Washington, and they did play them close. but they didn't get the win. And we're starting to wonder, did we drink that Kool-Aid a little too quickly?
You know, I love watching ASU football, not for the fact that I love them, but for the fact I love seeing them challenged. Coming from a Mizzou fan here, I love seeing college fans college teams get challenged. And it seems like every year we see ASU get challenged in only certain games. And then even when they're not challenged and they're playing against unranked teams easily destroy, they're struggling. And I think we hopped on this Herm Edwards train a little too soon, considering it is his first year.
Yeah, it's funny how you kind of talk about the challenges, because under Todd Graham, the challenges that they faced were trying to put their shoes on correctly and put their helmets on, not backwards. So it's a different challenge now with Herm Edwards. And there's more of the hype that you talked about around the program. And what's funny is that when they made the announcement of Herm Edwards, everyone questioned the athletic director at ASU and can Herm Edwards really coach? And
especially at the collegiate level.
Yeah, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but his last stint was in the NFL. Where he coached for the Jets.
It was the Jets or the Chiefs. I don't remember. But it was almost 10 years ago.
Yeah. So point being is he's been out of coaching for a long time, especially college. He's been out of coaching for a long time, and the big marketing scheme around Herm Edwards was that these kids grew up watching Herm Edwards, which, to be honest, I didn't that much. And a lot of these people come and play college football right now are about my age. So for me, that wouldn't have been as big of a pull. But the thing was that you're going to get all these, the recruiting classes are going to be better because you have Herm Edwards. You've gone from skeptics to believers after week 2. And now after losing these back-to-back games, you've got skeptics again. And I guess I would just say that for the most part, these aren't his kids. Coaching is coaching, so you would hope that he can still pull off quality wins like Michigan State. I guess I'm not over the hype. I think you just unfortunately have to be patient. And that's a very easy answer for someone who's an ASU fan to try to make an excuse for these last 2 games. I wouldn't say I'm not worried, but my hopes weren't that high going into the season anyways. So the quality win over Michigan State, yeah, that gets me excited, but let's just see what he can do when Manny Wilkins is out the door and he can bring his own quarterback and his own kids in after that.
Yeah, and this is Wilkins' last season, and that's a very good point you bring up with being patient and the fact that these aren't his guys. You're 100% correct in that. I think a lot of people kind of overlook the fact that the reason college football coaches will get longer leashes than guys in the NFL is because they need a chance for their own recruiting process to kind of show up, and you get to see firsthand, what they're about. Like, let's be honest, Jim Harbaugh in Michigan has been very underwhelming, but he had such a long leash because the guy before him, and his name's escaping me, and that's really going to piss me off. Can one of you look that up? I'm really upset that I can't remember. Thank you, Connor. So in the meantime, he just didn't have his recruits going, and we all know Jim Harbaugh was able to pull the number 1 overall recruit in the 2016 class, I believe, and Rashawn Gary, and Gary's been outstanding. So Michigan's not winning football games as much as we would like them to, but at the end of the day, like I said, the reason he's got such a nice leash, outside of the fact that Michigan gave him a nice, big, fat contract because of the connections he had at the university.
Khaki pants.
Exactly. You go to Walmart and get those on sale, baby. Even though his wife likes to throw them out. Come on. You get nice khakis for $15.
It's hilarious watching him wear those khaki pants literally everywhere.
Yes. Thank you. Like I said, I knew that was going to piss me off.
Rich Rodriguez. Didn't know that.
I remember him at West Virginia.
He was right before Brady from 2008 to 2010.
And then he must have gone to West Virginia. And then, no. For how long was he there?
2008 to 2010.
Okay. Yeah, I feel like that doesn't add up because Rich Rod came from West Virginia. We'll look more into that later. You just got to love the professionalism that we bring over here at the Pile on podcast. So, just to kind of close this argument up a little bit so that we can keep moving forward, we got all sorts of good conversation for you guys this week. So make sure you're subscribed to us on iTunes, Spreaker, Spotify, all that good stuff. Leave a 5-star review. Let us know what you guys think. Follow us on Instagram, on Twitter at the PTP Podcast. We have a Facebook page. Like I said, We upload every Wednesday, both a college football and an NFL podcast. So just make sure you're keeping track of us.
We're not on Spotify just yet, even though it kind of dropped on you guys, so don't freak out. We are currently working on that, but it is Spreaker, YouTube, Facebook, SoundCloud, all that good stuff. So for iPhone users, and also for the Android users, subscribe to Spreaker for Android and iTunes, of course, for Apple users.
Might be. I thought we had that set up.
Not yet. We're close. We need more likes and reviews, and then we can actually set that up. So the more you guys leave reviews and give us more feedback, that's actually going to help us get on there.
We are everywhere. We're in your home. We're in your hearts, but not Spotify.
But don't worry, we still hate your opinions.
All the time.
To bring this argument to a close, I think the important things to remember are like just the key points that we pointed out. He needs time to get his recruits in. Connor, you made another excellent point. I don't think anyone had big expectations this year for ASU.
Unless you were an ASU fan that was completely biased. Well, now we've got Herm Edwards. Everything's going to turn around. We want Bama week 1. Like that. That's just crazy. Like there were a lot of people who questioned the hire at the time. And while I would say that even with the back-to-back losses, I think they did get the right guy. But time's yet to tell.
Exactly. You're only 4 games into a very young college football season. And you're still in the hunt in the Pac-12 South because of how weak it is.
They'll be in the hunt for the Pac-12 South during the last week.
It's very possible. This looks like a team that could win 7-8 games, though. So we'll wait and see. In the meantime, though, there are teams that are far and away better. And the most prestigious example of that has to be the University of Alabama and the Crimson Tide and everything that they bring up and about through. It starts with the defense, really. But now we're seeing the offense come together. We've seen pieces. We've seen Julio Jones. We've seen Trent Richardson. We've seen Derrick Henry. We've seen Amari Cooper, Calvin Ridley, O.J. Howard.
Julio Jones, right?
Yes.
What's his name?
That was literally the first name I said.
I just love hearing his name.
Julio. His real name is Quintorris.
It definitely was not Julio. It was his first name.
Yeah.
I don't know where you
I wouldn't
pulled
go
that
by
from.
Quintorris either. So
Quintorris Jones. It's interesting. It doesn't have the ring that Julio Jones has, though.
No.
Julio Jones sounds like a Hall of Famer. Quintorris Jones sounds like a guy who's in the league for about 2 seasons.
Oh, so Matt Leinart.
what's the opposite of Quintorris? Julio. Perfect. I'll take it.
It's perfect.
No, but Alabama, they're unstoppable. Every time you watch them, they just dominate. Even last week, they started out a little bit slow, but they came back and they just put a fist in your mouth and just drove you to the ground. They are an outstanding program.
Their recruiting is as good as it gets. Everyone and their mother wants to play for Nick Saban, especially with the success that he's brought to this program. It's incredible. And his biggest flaw has been recruiting quarterbacks. Tua Tagovailoa looks incredible.
Alabama quarterback. That sounds like an oxymoron in itself.
He might be the Heisman frontrunner. Something we'll touch on here in a little bit, of course. But Tagovailoa is outstanding. He looks like an NFL prospect. He's a true sophomore, which means Bama has at least one more year out of him to maybe get a national championship. Boys, is there anyone who can stop this team right now? Like Skylar said, they look completely unstoppable. Do you see any chinks in this armor anywhere?
I mean, the offense, I think, is the chink. It depends how Tagovailoa starts out the game. Because in this last week here, the offense came out slow and they were struggling. So I want to see the offense really step it up and get points on the board early.
When that defense is as good as it is, and if you're going to try to compare the offense and defense, it's almost impossible not to say that the offense is the weak part of the football team. But actually this year is something you don't see very often. Alabama's offense actually has the 13th best yards per average through the air and 42 best, I believe, yards per carry on the ground in the nation. Something we don't see very often out of the quarterbacks.
Yeah. I mean, in the last 10 years, who's the best quarterback they've had? Probably A.J. McCarron. A guy who was decent in college.
He's doing really well right now.
Yeah, exactly. On injured reserve.
Yep.
Is he?
He got traded, too.
Oh, he's a Raider, isn't he?
Yeah.
I don't think he's injured reserve. I think he fractured the collarbone, but it wasn't severe, so I think they
maybe
just
the
have
pup
him.
list or something.
Yeah, I think he's just in kind of a sitting third string or something like that.
Either way, it's not good.
No.
For a guy... Do you guys remember someone put out an article that A.J. McCarron was a MVP candidate going into this year for the NFL?
behind the great line they have there, behind all the weapons.
Exactly.
That doesn't make any sense.
Kelvin Benjamin.
Oh my gosh. But Tua this year.
Bring it back to college. There you go.
So looking at some of Tua's stats, he's completing 72.5% of his passes.
That's disgusting.
To 12 touchdowns and 0 picks, as well as 2 rushing touchdowns on the year. All 4 games, he's had a completion of at least 49 yards or more, and currently leading the nation in quarterback rating and yards per attempt.
Tua is phenomenal. I think a lot of people knew what he could have been. And Bama was just very committed to Jalen Hurts at the time because Hurts wasn't going to win you games, but he wasn't turning the ball over, and he was making enough plays to keep you steady. Tua can win you games by himself.
I feel bad for Hurts, man. Like
they need to let him transfer.
You go back to that championship, and so often you see like selfishness come out of just people in general, but players when they're not getting the ball like they want. There's plenty of examples like that we see all the time. Hurts, when they told him that he wasn't coming out in the second half, he was supportive of Tua. He wasn't throwing a fit. He was a good teammate. While it's pretty obvious he's not the better quarterback, I just feel bad for the guy.
They have one of the coolest bromances I've ever seen. We talked about this a little bit on the last podcast, but it's so funny. It was either their third game of the season or the second game of the season. Tua made this outstanding play to score a touchdown, or it might have been Hurts. Either way, the point is they walked over to each other and they just kind of stared at each other for a minute, and you were like, oh, geez, what's going on? And then they just smile and they just give each other big hugs, and, they're celebrating together. Like, it's so cool to see that kind of brothership,
the team mentality.
Yes, exactly. So Hurts is a good kid, and I hope that he gets a chance. But again, back to the topic on hand.
Is this Alabama. The best Alabama team we've ever seen?
Exactly. It just might be not. Is this the best defense we've ever seen? No, not at all. We've seen defenses from Alabama that are way more stacked. I mean, look at last year alone when they still had Minka Fitzpatrick and who's the linebacker that just got drafted?
To San Francisco.
Rashawn Evans. No, that was 2 years ago from Reuben Foster. Rashawn Evans, Minka Fitzpatrick, Daron Payne, Deshaun Hand were just dominant. The first 3 I mentioned were all first-round picks.
Public service announcement.
Uh-oh.
It's 2019. Uh-oh. It's week 5 of the college football season.
Uh-oh.
We're here in the Pylon to Pylon podcast.
Uh-oh.
Is this the best Alabama team we've ever seen? They just get better and better. It feels like every year they recruit better kids. There's just no better coaching anywhere. The talent is as good as it gets,
I think the talent was really good when they had Trent Richardson and Ingram in their backfield. I think that was one of their best teams I've ever seen.
They also had Julio Jones on that team, so I agree with you. But they didn't have the quarterback. At the time, that was Greg McElroy.
But the running backs were unstoppable. In Ingram and Richardson, that's when Richardson obviously was a beast, and there was no stopping him, and they ran for easily 150 minimum every game.
True, but if you're going to talk about the most well-rounded, best team of all time, you have to include a team in which they have quarterback.
Definitely.
And it's not like they don't have running backs. Damian Harris is going to be a top 60 pick this year, and Najee Harris looks like a Leonard Fournette cologne. It looks like they just were able to get a piece of Leonard Fournette's beard, just put it in a lab, and duplicate him into Najee Harris.
They actually took out one of his hamstring heads and...
Oh, boo. That breaks my heart. Shut up.
Fun fact, Damian Harris is one of 6 players to have back-to-back 1,000-yard seasons, and no one in Alabama history has done it 3 years. They've had a couple other great running backs on the list, and Sean Alexander is on that list, as well as T.J. Yeldon. T.J. Yeldon actually came up about 20 to 30 yards short, maybe, the season before he got drafted. So Damian Harris has the possibility to do that this year.
Yeah, I think everyone forgets with Yeldon, he was always competing with guys ahead of him. He had to play behind Eddie Lacy for a while. And then when Yeldon got his turn to start, Derrick Henry's breathing down his neck, so was Kenny Drake. They have always had good running backs. But now you got Damian Harris and Najee Harris, the Harris Bros. You still have Joshua Jacobs on that team, who's phenomenal. Top to bottom, this is a great team. We can't forget about Jerry Jeudy, a guy that Skyler's really big on. He's brought up before.
Love him. Love the hands. Love the explosiveness. The great wide receiver.
Oh, he's incredible. And again, you go to the defense and you still have guys all over. So, to Skylar's question, I think right now this might be the best Bama team we've seen because the quarterback completes them.
Agreed.
Well then, with that being said, who's next? I mean, I don't know if we can definitively say that there's any team that can go toe-to-toe with Bama. Who can give them a run for their money? Skylar, can you kick us off?
I hate saying their name, but they always put up a good fight, and that's Ohio State. And their offense is always explosive. For whatever reason, they always have a good wide receiver core. Their quarterbacks are always stable. You can always interchange them, so it gives you different kind of play calling out there. And their defense is always in the top 10 in the nation. So, I mean, it's a good team, and it's going to give Alabama a run for their money. May not beat them, but definitely will give them a challenge.
Yeah, their quarterback, Dwayne Haskins, has been outstanding. He's a Heisman candidate. He could be a one-and-done guy and just go straight to the NFL with what he's done. Skylar, you're talking about their receiving core. Yeah, absolutely. They got guys all over the place. You know, maybe they're not first-round picks, but we can't talk about Paris Campbell enough and just really consider how underrated he is in that offense. Meanwhile, the running backs are fantastic. You've got J.K. Dobbins, phenomenal, and you still got Mike Weber.
And all the positions on offense are interchangeable. Like, the quarterback can play wide receiver, the running back can play wide receiver, running back can also throw the ball. I mean, there's so many interchangeable parts. It's a complicated offense for defenses to handle a lot of the times.
Yeah, they're very talented top to bottom. And, of course, like you said with the defense, you look at the defensive line, that's disgusting. Even without Nick Bosa, they're still going to be able to generate pressure. I think now we're going to start to see Draymond Jones at his full potential because he looks like he could be a top 20 pick. He looked like a first-round pick last year and opted to come back. And Ohio State, you know, they have one of the best defensive lines in the NFL. Right now, that's DBU. They got corners top to bottom, man.
Plug and play.
Exactly. Connor, who do you got?
One of the usual suspects. I don't think it's coming out of the blue, but Georgia definitely looks good.
Yeah, a repeat of your national championship game.
Yeah, I mean, Jake Fromm is also playing at a high level, completing 72.5% of his passes, just like Tua. We were just praising him for that. I mean, they got DeAndre Swift. I believe it's their cornerback, Baker. Not a flashy guy.
DeAndre Baker, yes.
Makes all the plays that he needs and is built like an NFL prospect. Kirby Smart has done his part, I believe, over the last 3 years to really turn this program around to, I don't want to say competing with Alabama, but they're definitely one of the bigger household names for college football.
Yeah, we got to talk about the work that Kirby Smart has done in such a short amount of time. To be a disciple of Nick Saban already puts you in a really good spot. But to see how quickly he is able to take Georgia from SEC East champs every year because of how weak that division is, but to actually get them to a point where they can compete with Alabama. They made the playoff last year. They went to the national championship last year and could have won it if Tua didn't come out at halftime. Georgia, top to bottom, has been great, and they're recruiting quarterbacks like it's no one's business. Jake Fromm came up for an injured Jacob Eason, who looked like a first-round pick his freshman year. He had to transfer to Washington to play. And now right behind Jake Fromm is Justin Fields, who, again, 5-star recruit. As soon as Fromm declares for the NFL at the end of the 2019 season, that's a true sophomore. Just like we were talking about with Tua, their window is still open at least one more year with Fromm, and Fields still looks like a guy to look out for. DeAndre Swift's incredible. That's a good offensive line. Georgia's going to compete. They're going to be able to waltz their way to another 11, maybe even a 12-win season. They'll go to the SEC championship game.
Yeah, you mentioned earlier about Nick Saban. Like, I feel like I don't ever want to take away from Kirby's success, and I hope he continues to build on that. I don't think that just because you know somebody who is successful, that also makes you successful. But it goes kind of along with, like, the people that you hang around with is who you're going to be in 5 years kind of thing. So because of the fact that he was with Nick Saban for a while, I mean, that definitely doesn't hurt to have on your resume. But I mean, the defense and special teams have played well. I mean, the game against Missouri, they didn't have a single offensive touchdown in the first half, but they still led 20-7. So the team all around is well built.
It definitely is. And for my pick, again, you know, the usual suspects, Alabama's rival at this point in time is Clemson.
Yep.
Wide receiver, they're spitting out guys like it's nobody's business.
Defensive
is incredible. What's that?
Defensive view.
That defensive line, that's for damn sure. I don't even need to talk about them. Everyone knows who Cleveland Farrell, Austin Bryant, Christian Wilkins, and Dexter Lawrence are.
But their wide receiver core is really underrated because every year they always put out a good wide receiver. We saw Sammy Watkins a couple of years back. There's a lot of other wide receivers that come out of this class. And
Mike Williams, DeAndre Hopkins. Now it's T. Higgins.
Oh, Hopkins.
Did Jerron Brown come from Clemson?
He did come from Clemson.
Great. Phenomenal wide receiver.
The good Hunter Renfrow is also playing at Clemson. In the meantime, boys, we talk about him every week. We got to talk about sunshine just for Donnie, the quarterback Trevor Lawrence, who's now getting majority of the playing time ahead of Kelly Bryant.
And he's taking advantage of every moment of it.
You're damn right he is, and he's going to take that team to higher levels. All three of the teams we just named, plus Alabama, that could be your playoff right there.
And it most likely will be. But, Ohio State can also disappear at any point. I think Ohio has the biggest chance to fall out of the playoff contention because there's like Auburn and other schools out there that could actually challenge them.
For the sake of conserving time, because we are doing a really good time diving into all this, and this has been a very good conversation, we're going to delay 1 week talking about teams that have really disappointed this year, just so we can continue to get a good feel for it. You guys can obviously assume it's the usual suspects. Teams like Michigan, Florida State are consistently underachieving to the level that we expect them to play at. We're going to wait 1 more week on that. We're going to go ahead and jump into our Heisman Trophy candidates. And boys, it is the quarterbacks to lose this award at this point.
Yeah, I feel like it's hard. Looking at some of the quarterbacks this year, so Tua, Will Grier, Dwayne Haskins, Justin Herbert, the quarterbacks are just really putting their name in the ring. And when you don't have a running back on the field like Bryce Love to challenge them, there's few players, I feel like, at the position that are playing that well at the moment that it's just all quarterbacks.
Well, there's so much politics that go into it, too, because if you remember a few years ago when Derrick Henry won the Heisman Trophy, he had over 300 carries. He was the first SEC running back with 2,000 rushing yards, even though Fournette had 1,900 that year and had a game canceled, which was against, a Division II school. So there's no doubt he would have crossed 2,000. But there's a lot of East Coast bias. And at the end of the day, the Heisman Trophy, majority of the time, is going to go to a team that's competing for a national championship. They're ranked in the top 10 kind of situation. So, point being, Christian McCaffrey, all the way on the West Coast playing at Stanford, broke Barry Sanders' record for all-purpose yards in a single season. Was absolutely incredible. Impressive. He was a Heisman finalist. That's great, but he probably should have won it that year. But to the point at that, it's so rare for a running back to win the award at this point in time because you're just looking at the quarterbacks and you just get so impressed with everything that they're able to do. And Connor, you named quite a few guys. You kind of missed out. Kyler Murray is the one who's really putting on a show at Oklahoma.
I'm not huge on Kyler Murray.
Everyone knows I'm not either.
He's going into baseball, obviously, so that's where his main focus is. Right now, he's just playing football just for the shits and giggles of it. But I really like Will Grier. What this kid has done in West Virginia is outstanding. His last game, he threw 5 touchdowns and only 2 picks. Granted, it's still 2 picks, but 5 touchdowns and the amount of yardage he's putting up every game is outstanding. They're not just beating teams. They're whooping teams. They have Tennessee, they beat 40-14. Youngstown State, 52-17. They didn't get to play North Carolina State. It's postponed. But they went against Kansas State, which is an underrated program. They play well, but still whooped them 35-6.
Yeah, Kansas State's a very good program.
This is a team to watch out for, especially with Will Grier at the helm. This is going to be a very explosive offense going through, and they could make that dark horse candidate to the playoffs.
Yeah. If I was a fan going up against, my team's going up against Will Grier this week in college football, and I'm buying a ticket, it almost feels like I'm buying a ticket to watch him beat them out like in the backyard in the shed. It's not looking good for whoever he's going up against.
Yeah, Will Grier looks like he's playing Madden on rookie difficulty and just throwing the ball up deep to David Sills and letting him do his work.
He's cheating, is what he's doing.
He's putting up video game numbers, and he's starting to get in that conversation for NFL draft. Not something we're going to touch on here, but that just to paint the picture of the kind of quarterback he is. Meanwhile, we're looking at, we mentioned Dwayne Haskins up at Ohio State is doing incredible things, and not with his legs. What he's able to do as a passer is incredible.
And that's different from what you hear from Ohio State quarterback.
Oh, yeah, you think of J.T. Barrett, Braxton Miller, Cardale Jones.
Quarterbacks that can do multiple positions. This is a quarterback that's standing in the pocket and making big boy throws.
And it's just incredible what he's able to do. He elevates the talent around him. And again, he has good talent around him. Paris Campbell is a really good receiver, but he might turn Paris Campbell into a guy we're talking about as a top 50 pick. That's a legitimate conversation to have because of what Haskins is able to do. I mentioned earlier he could be one and done, and that's a very serious conversation because of how fantastically he has played. He had all the hype coming into the year, and he's lived up to it and then some. Kyler Murray's been great. I don't want to talk about him because he burns me every week. We already talked about Tua. Connor, you mentioned Justin Herbert. That's another guy who is just putting up great numbers. Again, looks like an NFL prospect. Look, like Connor mentioned, with Bryce Love kind of missing a few games and he's just not putting up the numbers that we were hoping he would. Jonathan Taylor is going to put up good numbers, but there are some people, and this is stupid in my opinion, who are saying he's a product of the Wisconsin offensive line, which I understand because we mentioned before that Wisconsin offensive line is just littered with not all pros, all Americans, but Jonathan Taylor's still talented. And then you have a couple wide receivers, N'Keal Harry and David Sills from West Virginia need to be in that conversation. But this is a quarterback award.
It's hard to give credit sometimes to a running back in their offensive line. Like it's definitely such a team sport. It's almost not fair to either side because if the running back's playing really well, then a lot of people assume that the offensive line's really great when that doesn't mean yes or no. Same thing with the running back. Maybe they're not that talented, but the offensive line's so good, they still play well.
It's just the name factor. Who's throwing the touchdowns? Who's putting up the big scores? Who's making the big plays? A lot of times the quarterback. Running backs are more of the grunt work where you see him get the 1 yard loss, you get the 2 yard gain. A lot of people are bored by that. They only remember the big yard gains. And if running backs don't have that all the time like a quarterback does, when they throw a deep ball, they're going to forget about them. And that's why quarterbacks are the Heisman candidates every year and getting the most.
You have to have those freakish years as a position player because you're not touching the ball every play like the quarterback is, especially a quarterback that can use their legs and their arm.
Excellent.
You're doing that every single play to what a defense has to account for. So unless you're just as electrifying player like a Bryce Love could potentially be, you're already at a disadvantage, unfortunately. But, I mean, looking at the season, the quarterbacks are just playing so well, it almost doesn't matter right now.
And they're all playing at big programs. Right now, this award is Tua's to lose. He has not thrown a pick on the year. He's got, you said 2 rushing touchdowns, right?
Yes,
so that gives him 14 total touchdowns in games where he's being pulled in the second, third quarter because of how big they get up. No picks, exactly. And he's playing lights out. He's completing over 70% of his passes. It's his award to lose right now because he plays at Alabama. And I'm not taking away from Tua, but there's probably more deserving guys. I would tell you Kyler Murray should be the runaway favorite, but Oklahoma isn't Alabama.
I think there should be different awards besides a Heisman. I think there should be different awards given out for quarterback because they just dominate that field. There should be something for running backs. I know there's, granted, what's the award called for running backs? If they win?
Jim Thorpe Award.
Jim Thorpe. There should be something that gives them more of a platform because it's just, the Heisman, it's always a quarterback. And I mean, it's kind of boring to watch.
They do have all sorts of awards like that, but I kind of get what you're saying is you should be able to award guys who aren't
dominating.
Yeah, exactly. Like Will Grier would be a favorite for that. Do you guys even know who Tyree Jackson is?
No.
Yeah. I came across the name before.
Because all the media talks about
is
a quarterback. We need to elevate these other positions because, the quarterback touches the ball all the time, but let's elevate something else.
Yeah, the conversation just needs to be held for more than a select few names. At the end of the day, Tua is more than deserving because of what he's doing. But right now, I feel like if you're Vegas, you got to stack the odds on being able to, just assume that Tua's going to win this award if he keeps doing what he's doing.
It's a little off topic, but it's not at the same time. I can't not bring this up. Do you guys know how tall Tyree Jackson is?
6'4"?
He's like 6'5", 6'6".
6'7", 245.
I was going to say, people have said he's built like Cam, and he's bigger.
That's a big boy.
Anyways.
Tyree Jackson's incredible, but you're not going to talk about him because he plays at the University of Oklahoma, so it's that whole argument of, well, he's not playing top-tier competition. And I get that to a certain extent. That's probably why there's so much East Coast bias is the SEC's over there. Anyways, that's going to wrap up a lot of good conversations we have. So what we're going to start doing moving forward with the College Football Podcast is we're going to take a look at all of your top 25 matchups, kind of run down them very briefly, and then we're going to do a cold, hard lock. We're going to make a bold prediction on an upset that's going to happen. So I'm really excited to do this. We're going to start keeping track of this stuff. Connor will have 1 week ahead of Donnie, so good for him. Again, shout out to Donnie. We're missing you right now, brother. We love you so much. Always here for you when you need us. With that being said, though, boys, let's go ahead and jump right on into our picks for this week. We're going to start off with the University of North Carolina will travel to number 16 Miami. Connor, do you mind kicking us off?
I'll take Miami.
Top to bottom, I mean, they're a really good team, so...
UNC is always a good team, though. I mean, their quarterback situation is always the issue. I think Miami, though, is too much for them to handle.
Miami has disappointed me this year. I wrote an article and said that Miami would end up being the number 5 team in the nation and just barely miss out on the playoff. That defense is loaded. You've got Michael Jackson at corner, who, no relation to the pop icon and legend. You've got talent just scattered throughout the defense, and I'm really pissed at myself because I'm drawing blanks on all their players. Shaquille Quarterman is their linebacker. I'm totally pissed at myself. I'm drawing a blank. Malik Rozier's a fine quarterback. They always have running backs. There's a reason they're number 16, and that's because they're able to put up points, but they're underwhelming. I'm going to take the upset here, and I'm going to go with the University of North Carolina in this game. All right. Our first matchup here between two top 25 teams, number 12 West Virginia, led by Will Grier, is going to go into number 25 Texas Tech and take on a high-flying Texas Tech Red Raiders offense with Cliff Kingsbury at the helm coaching that team. Skylar, who do you got?
Will Grier's going to throw over 400 yards and 4 touchdowns and whip Texas Tech out of the top 25.
That's a good first half for him. I feel like Texas Tech isn't a bad team, but it's hard for me to pick against Will Grier right now.
Texas Tech has never been known as a defensive team. They're giving up stuff all the time. Yeah, Will Grier's going to have his way with this team. I'm taking number 12 West Virginia by a mile. I don't care about the home field advantage. Underwhelming University of Tennessee is going to go into number 2 Georgia.
And get the literal shit beat out of them.
Rip in peace.
Yeah, so we're all in agreement. Georgia's going to roll the Volunteers, right?
Oh, yeah.
Jake Fromm, another guy that we forgot to mention with our Heisman candidacy, is going to continue stacking on top of what has been a great season and continue pulling the attention of scouts even though he's not eligible. Tennessee plays in the SEC. Everyone's going to be watching this game. Georgia's number 2 in the nation. Georgia's going to whip these guys. Boys, Texas is back!
Who?
Or so we say every year. Number 18 Texas is going to Kansas State.
I feel like it's not that hard of an upset, but I'm actually going to go with K-State here.
That is actually, spoiler alert, that's going to be my cold hard lock of the week. I'm taking Kansas State at home over the red hot Longhorns. Skylar, who are you taking in that game?
I think I'll take Texas. They play consistent football. Kansas State's hit or miss. I think Texas just gets it done.
They're just, both of these teams are tough and gritty. Texas has just got an edge to them this year. But K-State is never easy with Bill Snyder coaching that team. Number 14, Michigan, weird to think they're ranked that high, is traveling to Northwestern in this game. Who do you guys got here?
See, I want to say Northwestern because they always play well against ranked teams, surprisingly. But I think Michigan just gets it done. I think they're going to win. I think they'll move up in the rankings a little bit. Surprisingly enough, I think they'll get right at 10. But Michigan's going to powerhouse them.
I am very tempted to take Northwestern behind Clayton Thorson at quarterback. But it is so hard for me to go against a defense led by Rashawn Gary in Michigan. If this game was in the Big House, I'd take Michigan by a lot. I still think I'm going to take Michigan, maybe one
Isn't
possession.
I'm pretty sure it's at Michigan.
It's at Northwestern.
It's at Northwestern.
Gotcha.
It's going to be a tough matchup. I'm going to take Michigan in that game, though. Connor?
Yeah, I'll take Michigan. I feel like things could be better for Northwestern right now. Not the most perfect circumstances. I guess I wouldn't be so dumbfounded to see Michigan lose, but I'll still feel pretty safe with that bet.
It's going to be a really good game to watch this weekend. I would tell you, college football fanatics, highlight that game. Go ahead and tune into that. You got two NFL caliber quarterbacks going up against each other, in Thorson from Northwestern and Shea Patterson, the Ole Miss transfer with Michigan. It'll be really interesting to watch those guys. In the meantime, Florida will be traveling to number 23 Mississippi State, a team that has found themselves some swagger, especially on defense behind Montez Sweat, the incredible edge rusher who's very quickly starting to get the attention of NFL scouts. Boys, who are you taking in this game?
Mississippi State's been just playing hot as of late, especially with them coming into the rankings here. I'll take them.
Mississippi State always has a good defense. I'm just going to take them.
Yeah, look, the Gators are just underachieving this year. Kentucky's ranked right now. We'll get to them in a minute. But Kentucky was able to take down the Gators in the swamp. They're underachieving this year.
Who would have thought you would have said that out loud?
With all the talent that goes through that program, I feel like they should never be this underwhelming. But, I mean, we're sitting here, and here we are. I'm going to go ahead and take Mississippi State at home. Those Cowboys are going to be ringing, boys. They're going to be so loud you'll hear them from here without your TV on. Meanwhile, VTech is going to number 22 Duke. Who would have thought we were going to live in a world where both Duke and Kentucky were ranked in the top 25, not in basketball?
Not here in America.
Not here in America. Boys, Virginia Tech looks good every year, but somehow they just find ways to lose, and they lost to Citadel last week. I don't understand how you can do that. I don't know if I'm buying VTech right now, but they're going to come into this game pissed off. I think Virginia Tech's going to pull off an upset win against number 22 Duke this weekend.
I agree with you. Virginia Tech's always up there, and Duke doesn't belong in the top 25. I think they knock them out. I think it's time Virginia Tech steps up and beats Duke.
I don't agree that, or I don't disagree, I should say, that Duke doesn't belong in the top 25. However, I think after losing to Citadel, I'll take Duke here. I'll be different.
It's not a bad choice. I just think that, or at least you would hope, that Virginia Tech's going to come into this game pissed off. It's going to be a tough game, though. Duke is, in the last few years, they've actually been a somewhat competitive football program. So it's not totally surprising to see them ranked. It's just funny to see them ranked because through and through, that's a basketball school. Everyone and their mother knows that. Boys, in the game of the week, long-time rivalry is coming to fruition once again as number 7 Stanford is taking on number 8 Notre Dame. It doesn't get more hype than that. I am incredibly excited for this game, but I'm going to tell you right now, like I'm going to tell you most of the time, I'm not drinking the Notre Dame Kool-Aid.
I was going to take the trees.
Yeah, give me the Stanford Cardinal, and you know what? Give me them by 2 possessions.
I agree with that.
Stanford's going to win the Pac-12 North. They're going to win the Pac-12 in general. They're just a stingy defense. It's the revenge of the nerds mentality with them. They're going to take you behind the woodshed, and they're going to paint your back porch red.
Hate when that happens.
I think Stanford does that this week. I'm not buying in the Notre Dame. There was a point in time where I thought Brian Kelly was maybe an NFL caliber head coach, and now I'm sitting here like, man, you shouldn't be coaching in college football in general. Yeah, give me Stanford.
Yeah, I'll take Stanford any day of the week. I mean, they're playing great football this time, and I don't think Notre Dame's going to be enough for it.
Dilly.
Bryce Love's going to run all over them.
Ooh.
Get his Heisman hopes back on track. Another really hyped game here, though, we can't overlook this one, is number 4 Ohio State going into Happy Valley to take on number 9 Penn State. Donnie
would take Penn State.
Donnie, I love you to pieces.
But ain't happening.
Trace McSorley is going to struggle against that defense, and Dwayne Haskins is going to continue his reign of terror. And Ohio State Buckeyes are going to take down Penn State. Not by a lot. It's not going to be a blowout. I think it's going to be a really close game, but I will take Ohio State by 2 possessions.
I have something taped underneath the chair here that says Donnie's opinion, so am I supposed to read that, or can I just give my own?
Why don't you do a little bit of both, and then we'll play a game where it's like, okay, who said what?
He said something about he didn't realize that Ohio State was still a football team or something. So I think he thinks Penn State's going to win. And unfortunately, I'm not a fan of Ohio State, and it's a good week when they lose, but I can't go Penn State here.
It's a battle of the scandals. That's for sure. Meanwhile, a surprisingly good South Carolina Gamecocks team is going into number 17 Kentucky.
And
that
it's
just
going
feels wrong.
to win. That is my lock for the week. South Carolina's going to be a big upset.
That was also my lock.
Oh. Well, we both locked it. You know why? Because South Carolina is playing great behind their quarterback, Jake Bentley. I mean, he's not putting up big numbers, but he's consistent in driving the offense down the field, and that's definitely what you want to see in your quarterback.
Boys, you know what? I'm going to agree with you. I'm going to go ahead and take the Gamecocks coming out of this game with a win behind Jake Bentley and that quarterback and the ability that South Carolina has shown us all that they have. They have passion, they have grit, and I think Kentucky might be a pretender. I think they're a lot better football team than we ever would have thought. But it's going to catch up with them.
Can you imagine getting like your uniforms and stuff like that for the team as a parent and stuff like that, and your kids putting on face paint, like stickers and stuff, and they got a sticker on their forehead that just says Gamecock?
Yeah, you got to at least see the logo, so you're like, oh, okay, it's actually pretty badass.
That's my kid.
Exactly. He's a Gamecock. Welcome to the Pylon podcast, where we just absolutely love making sexual innuendos, having really fun conversations before we started recording, too. Shout out to all the girlfriends and wives of this podcast.
Oh, my God.
Boys, the Mormons are on a run. Number 20 BYU is coming in to number 11 University of Washington, who is still a good team, but they're not what they were the last 2 years. Guys, I'm taking the Mormons. I'm taking number 20 going into Washington and coming out with a win after they just took down number 5, number 6, number 4, Wisconsin, whatever they were at the time. BYU's on a roll right now.
I don't feel like it's one of those decisions where it's like, well, they can't do that back-to-back weeks, right? I'm putting my fate here in Jake Browning's hands, but
that's a mistake.
I can't see it. I don't want to be that person that always just takes the higher seed, but I'm going to go with Washington here.
Yeah, I'm going to go Washington too. BYU had a great week last week, but they're not going to replicate that again.
Look, at the end of the day, Washington's by far the better team. Jake Browning's not an NFL quarterback, but he's still a very good college quarterback. Myles Gaskin, I don't think he's an NFL running back, but again, very good college running back. And if that's not good enough for you, let's go ahead and flip to that defense. And the secondary, that's fantastic, led by safety Taylor Rapp, who's just going to put your ass in the turf. He's one of those guys. He's going to stand over you after the play, and he's going to say, you better pack a lunch because you're going to be sitting there a while. Washington is not going to be easy, but I'm taking the Mormons. I have a feeling. Joseph Smith is whispering in my ear right now, and he's telling me, you got to take this team.
I thought he was playing quarterback.
Nah, he's busy hanging out with his 16 wives. Ole Miss. Underwhelming, but probably the best wide receiving core in the nation, led by DK Metcalf. Will be going to number 5 LSU.
Yeah, good luck.
Yeah, guys, I'm not drinking the LSU Kool-Aid, but I'm going to drink the LSU Kool-Aid this week. Welcome to Death Valley.
But we have the best wide receiving core. Good luck.
Yeah, they have Greedy Williams. That's just like when Loki's like, I have an army, and they're like, we have a Hulk. We have receivers. We have Greedy Williams.
Good luck.
You're not throwing on Greedy Williams. Greedy Williams is the best LSU prospect corner-wise since Patrick Peterson.
He's pretty good.
He's outstanding.
You know what? I'm not going to take LSU, but I'm not going to take them by a lot. I think they get challenged this week by Ole Miss with that wide receiving core. The defense definitely going to be tested, and Greedy will be, in that spotlight there. Be like, hey, can I actually handle all this talent? And then if Ole Miss actually pulls this off, it's going to be by a touchdown. It's going to be a late game, but I think LSU pulls it off late.
I do think it's going to be a surprisingly close game. I think Greedy has his work cut out for him because I know I highlighted DK Metcalf. A.J. Brown was coming into the year on a lot of draft boards as the number 1 receiver.
Skyler, I like that. I'm going to take him, but I'm not going to like it.
Exactly.
He's honest. You got to love honesty. All right, boys. Last game of the week is another top 25 team going up against a top 25 team. This time at number 19, Oregon, staying in conference, staying in division to take on another Pac-12 North rival in number 24, Cal. Who you got in this game?
Cal.
Cal's
Really?
Cal's played surprisingly well. I'm actually going to go with Cal here, too.
Wow, you guys actually caught me off guard.
I watched a little bit of Oregon in the last 2 weeks, and their offense is pretty flat. I mean, they're putting up points, but it's not the same offense we've been seeing. They look really flat, and I think Cal's going to take advantage of that.
I'm going to go ahead and stick with Oregon. I think they're still a good team. They're just lacking that killer instinct, and I think that's what's going to hold them back the whole year. But Justin Herbert is legit, and I'm not buying that Cal Kool-Aid just yet. I know Kool-Aid has been like my favorite word of this podcast, so
We
you
don't
can go
even
ahead and
have
start
any
a drinking
Kool-Aid.
game. Everyone at home, take a shot every time Richie says Kool-Aid.
And don't go outside. It's not safe.
This is true. In the meantime, though, that's going to wrap up just about everything. Connor, I can't remember. Are you going to do the Denny Green Minute now or on the next podcast?
I will wait till then.
Well, then, with that being said, this has been the college football edition of the Pile on podcast, once again brought to you by SeatGiant.com. SeatGiant.com, once again, needs to be your go-to place whenever you need tickets for just about any event that you can think of.
Like Ohio State and Penn State.
I'm sorry, what did you say it was? Was it Chair Dwarf?
No, it's SeatGiant.com.
Okay.
Stretching all across North America. They take Canadian dollars, they take U.S. dollars. Whatever you need. Go ahead and type in the promo code PYLON for an additional discount. That's PYLON, PYLON, for SeatGiant.com. So from all of us here at the Pylon podcast, this has been the college football edition. New episodes out every single Wednesday. Subscribe to us on iTunes. Give us a 5-star review. Listen to us on Spreaker. Follow us on Twitter, Instagram at the PTP Podcast. We have a Facebook page. Give us a shout out. Email us questions, concerns, comments.
Leave us a review.
Leave us that review, baby. You leave us a review, and we will come to your house and give you $5 and the biggest hug you have ever seen.
It's really big.
$5 may subject to change.
Ladies and gentlemen, this has been the Pile on podcast. I'm your host, Richard Bradshaw.
Skylar Burkhart.
I'm announcer number 4.
Our good friend Connor Dreos. Thank you for filling in once again. Up next, or if you listen to the NFL podcast before, then congratulations, you got through both the podcasts. In the meantime, up next is going to be the NFL podcast. Once again, Connor Dreos will be joining us. We'll see you guys next week.